Hi guys, we're going to learn about midpoint, distance, and bisectors. Midpoint on a number line. Find the coordinate of the midpoint of the segment PK. So P is right here, K is right here. Where is the midpoint? Midpoint between P and K is right here. As you can see, from K is 1, 2.5 unit. From here is 1, 2.5 unit. So we want to find this point as a number on a number line. This M is a 0. So this is 0, this is -5, this is +5, and this midpoint between P and K is half on a number line. So the answer is half. And we're going to use this rule, A plus B divided by 2. A is 3, which is P is from 0, 1, 2, 3. And then B is, which is K here, from 0, -1, -2. So this is P, this is K. You add them and divide it by 2 because midpoint means middle point, right in half, middle of it. So add those 2 points divided by 2, which is 1/2. And this is the location on the number line. You can write as half or 0.5. So midpoint with ordered pairs. This is the formula when you have 2 ordered pairs, how to find the midpoint. This is the coordinate x and y. So please write down the formula. x1 plus x2 divided by 2. So halfway between x points. And then y1 plus y2 divided by 2, halfway between y. So let's look at the example here. Find the midpoint between 7, 5, 2, and -4. So you want to label x1, y1, x2, y2. So x1 plus x2 is 7 plus 2, which is 9, divided by 2. So 9/2 is your midpoint for x. y1 plus y2 is 5 plus -4, which is +1, 1/2. So the midpoint for y is 1/2. So basically you take the x divided by 2, you take the y's divided by 2, and that's your midpoint. This is the midpoint. Let's take a look at the next one. -8, -10, 8, -22. So x1, x2. -1 plus 8 is 0. 0 divided by 2 is 0. y1 plus y2, -10 plus -22 divided by 2 will be -32 divided by 2 will be -16. So this is the midpoint between these 2 points. Finding an endpoint, draw it out. The midpoint of segment CD is M, -2, 1. One endpoint is C, -5 and 7. What are the coordinates for D? So when you have this kind of problem, you want to draw a segment CD like this. Please draw. And the midpoint is M right here. So C is -5 and 7, which is given. M, the midpoint is also given, -2 and 1. They want you to find the endpoint. So once you draw CMD, you can actually see what happened here. From -5 to -2, you add 3. So in order to find this point, it's the same distance, because this is the midpoint, you just do -2 plus 3, which is +1. From 7 to 1, you subtract 6. So you're going to do the same thing from 1 minus 6, which is -5. So you see the relationship between here, add or subtract, and you do the same thing to this midpoint, and you get the end point. Because it's exact same distance from C to M, M to D. Exact same distance. So the answer is D, 1, negative 5. On your own, you're going to try this question. What is the midpoint between 5, negative 3, and negative 8 and 6? I want you to try this. And then also the midpoint of LM, segment LM, is A, 2, negative 1. One endpoint is negative 3 and negative 5. What is the other endpoint? So I want you to draw this one, the segment LM, and label it and find the other endpoint. So I'm going to have you pause the video, use your notes, and try these two questions. Once you're done, I want you to check the answers. Pause the video. Let's go over the answers. So what I did is 5 plus negative 8 divided by 2, which is negative 3 over 2. Negative 3 plus 6 divided by 2 is 3 over 2. So that's the midpoint between these 2 points. I drew a segment LM, and A is right in the middle. So I labeled it with L, negative 3 and negative 5, A, 2 and negative 1, and I saw the relationship. From here, negative 3 to positive 2, I add 5. So I just add 5 to 2, that's 7. From negative 5 to negative 1, you add 4. So I did the same thing. So negative 1 plus 4 is positive 3. So the answer for the second problem, M, is 7 and 3. Now we're going to look at a new formula called distance formula. Distance formula, where does it come from? It's coming from Pythagorean theorem. Distance formula is square root of x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. And I'm going to explain this. First of all, Pythagorean theorem is for a right triangle. When you have a right triangle, you have a 90-degree angle here. Pythagorean theorem is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And I want you to write that. So the distance formula is when they give you x and y points, 2 points, you can find the distance between A and B. So basically this right here is where you find the distance. So what you're going to do is do a squared plus b squared and then square root that. That's equals c. So here, if you do a squared plus b squared equals c, in order to find c, you're going to do the square root of these two. It's the same concept. So instead of a squared, you're going to write x2 minus x1, because that's the point for a, because I'm going to give you a point. And then instead of b, we're going to do y2 minus y1 squared. And that's how you find the distance. So here are distance formula, how you use it. So I'm going to give you 2 points, x1, y1, x2, y2. Can you label it x1, y1, x2, y2? Label them under each point. And then you're going to plug it into the distance formula. Distance formula is square root of x2 minus x1, parentheses squared, plus y2 minus y1, parentheses squared. So you just plug in one by one. x1 is 7. x2 is 7. x1 is 2. So do 7 minus 2, which is 5. And then do 5 squared. And then you're going to do 5 minus negative 4, which is 9. And then 9 squared is 81. Add those two numbers, and then the distance is square root of 106. Now you can put that in the calculator, and you can round to the nearest whole number, which will be 10, right? About 10. If you put in the calculator, square root of 106. Let's take a look at the next one. The distance is x1, y1, x2, y2. So label that, and then you're going to plug it into the distance formula. Square root of x2 minus x1, parentheses squared, plus y2 minus y1, parentheses squared. So I'm going to plug that in. So x1, x2 minus x1 is 8 minus negative 8, which is 16 squared. And then y2 minus y1, negative 22 minus negative 10 is positive 10. So that's negative 12 squared. And then if you put that in the calculator, you get 400. You're going to do square root of 400, which is 20. So you can just put the whole thing in the calculator, and then you get 20. So distance between these 2 points is 20. Distance between these 2 points are about 10. So you just have to write down the distance formula, label x1, y1, x2, y2, and then plug it into the formula. Use graphing calculator to solve the distance between these 2 points. So this gives you the exact distance between 2 points. So I want you to try by yourself. I want you to label x1, y1, x2, y2, and write down the distance formula. Square root of x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. And I want you to plug it in and then find the distance. So try this question and try this question, and then use your graphing calculator to write the distance between these two. So go ahead and try it. Pause the video. Okay, so I first label x1, y1, x2, y2 for both of them, and I plugged it into the distance formula. I used the calculator, and I got 15.8 for the first one and 6.4. So I round both of them because I got a decimal. So I round to the nearest 10th place. Next thing we're going to talk about is called the bisectors. Bisector is we call this segment bisector. Bisector, a point, line, ray, or other segments that intersects a segment at its midpoint is said to bisect, cut in half. So bisect means cut in half the segment. So here you have a segment A and C, and this is a line, L for line, and it is a segment bisector of A and C because you see these two lines, that means they're congruent. Same, equal. So they're equal to each other, and this B is the midpoint of AC. So this line is called a segment bisector. This midpoint is between right here in half between A and C. So this is called the segment bisector, where they divide AC into two things. Next thing we're going to see is angle bisector. A ray that divides an angle into two congruent angles. The angle bisector in this example is A and AY. So right here you have angle XAZ, and this right here is angle, the angle bisector, because these two, you see this arc, those are congruent. It shows that they're same thing. So A and Y, that right here, ray AY is the angle bisector. I have a question for you though. Let's say this angle right here, XAZ, is 100 degrees, and I want you to find X, value for X. If this is 2X plus 3, this is 2X plus 3. How would you find that? Pause the video and try it. I want you to solve for X. Okay, so this is 100. That means each piece is 50-50 because ray AY is a bisector. Bisector means cuts in half. So half of 100 is 50. So you can do 2x plus 3 equals 50. Solve for x, subtract 3 divided by 2. And then the answer for x is 23.5. So I want you to do the extra practice. This one is find the missing midpoint or endpoint. So these two are two endpoints. You have to find the midpoint. This is an endpoint. This is a midpoint. So you got to find one endpoint. This is also midpoint and endpoint. So you got to find another endpoint. So go ahead and try and pause the video and check with the key. Pause the video. Here are the answers. First one is 1 and 3.5, or you can write 7 over 2. This one is negative 8, 0. And then this one is 1 and negative 3. Thank you for watching the video. We'll do more practice in class.